A lot of what goes on is invisible. And often we only value things that generate numbers. And so part of the reason I created a kind of currency was currency generates numbers. If the only thing we count for the gross domestic product is how many pounds sterling are exchanged, that's a very limited definition of what goes on. So if our goal is to create community, how do we make that generate numbers, and how do we create what I've called a different measure of GDP, a civic GDP? I would love to see Stirling, frankly, lead the way in saying we can have a 10%, 20% growth in civic GDP in terms of activity that's generated and recorded and that links in turn to rewards and incentives. We've got the power to solve the problems if we begin to think differently about what's available to us. And I made an amazing discovery about money. Money determines value by price. I know I'm the first person to discover that, but nonetheless, and value is based upon price. Price is based upon supply and demand. So if it's scarce, the price is high. If it's abundant, the price is cheap. If it's really abundant, the price is close to zero. It's worthless. And I suddenly realized that meant that every capacity that defines us as a human being is abundant, is worth, and therefore worthless in monetary terms. So I remember when I started this, a senior telling me, after her her adult children had visited her, I said, "Why are you looking so sad?" They went away real happy. They were so proud of what they had done and how they were doing. She said, "I have nothing left to give but love." And I thought, something is wrong in a society where that's a nothing. It's not easy to start, but it's easy to start small with something that turns you on, and that you or a group in your office say, let's take this on as an office project, just a small thing. You were mentioning one small project, and I think starting small and saying, but we're going to try and think through, and then we're going to share the stories, and we're going to brag about the stories, because those are the things that give authenticity to a new start. So that would be my suggestion. The community will come up with inventions that we can't dream of, and that's what keeps happening every time we say to young people or say to the community, we don't have the money to deal with the problem the way we used to. We don't have the staff, so let's figure out how to deal with it, because sitting at home alone and saying we're powerless doesn't feel like a lot of fun. And I just think that if we begin thinking that way and begin honoring that work and begin honoring the creativity and start facing each other as equals trying to solve problems, you're going to come up with solutions to problems that are very different from anything you're looking at now. We've got both stories and knowledge and insights, and that could be a catalyst for change. And I just think we need to get a game plan together and cluster the talent that's here around that. And then we need to partner with the folks at Nesta and the folks and other folks and other think tanks to say, all right, let's move this stuff out and get and this ought, discovering people ought to be the hot new idea. I'm seeing now, and I'm getting that feeling here, that there's an openness to these ideas that didn't exist a few years ago, and so I'm feeling very optimistic about two things. One is I think that we're going to see an understanding, and I'm having actually some studies done on what are called return on investment. People want to know what's the multiplier effect. And in fact, what we're seeing, particularly in the health and elder care field, is that the return on investment in terms of money saved, that would be true in prisons and recidivism too, that the return on investment can be quantified, and it's very, very impressive. Then I'm in dialogue with the government to say, why aren't you asking the folks whom you fund to deliver services, and why aren't you rewarding them if they can come up with in-kind match in citizen participation hours by partnering with or by starting a time bank? Because government needs to get a multiplier effect on its service dollars, and time banking is a way, an in-kind match is a way of talking about that and getting the folks who are delivering services to also be, in effect, community organizers at the same time.
The key thing is that I derive from this presentation is the fact that volunteering is undervalued, unrecognized in terms of its contribution and even potentially its monetary contribution to society. And also that youth is not a barrier but an asset.
The part that really struck a key to me was the invisible operating system, that it's not just about professional talents and skills, that there is so much more that people have that we just don't know about, and actually is that not what we should be focusing more on to get things done?
Did you ever see The Wire, the programme The Wire, which basically deals with the complete failure of urban policy in the States? When I was listening to Edgar talking about the really bad neighbourhoods in DC, it struck me that the only way they were going to get those fixed was by the cooperative, voluntary nature of the activity that he was describing, and it was just really, really powerful.
I like the notion of the civic GDP, and we were talking about when officers put reports to the council, they have to do an equality impact assessment and environmental impact assessment, and we think there should be something about a civic GDP. What is that doing in terms of growing that?
For me, I think that I've understood, I've heard Edgar before. We've been working in Volunteer Development Scotland around time banking. So I've already got, if you like, the foundation, and the master has helped me to move up a gear or two to realise that it's not just about understanding those concepts, but a willingness to act and to do things.
I think the challenge for us in Scotland, and the challenges for us across each local authority area across Scotland, is to translate that concept into real value at a local level for local people, for us all in our local communities. So in a political, financial, economic climate which is very restrictive in terms of public sector funding investment in particular, we need to look at different ways of doing things, and as a concept itself, time banking does that.
I think today it was good to hear other people's experiences, and I think what I'm taking away again is that there is not one model, and what works in Castlemilk may not work in Elgin or Aberdeen, and I'd say that Time Bank is organic, and it will just grow and grow into the community, that it will be what the community wants, and it was good to hear that there were different models about here today.
I was pleased, he felt very positive about the way things are moving, and it chimed a bit with my own views in terms of, certainly with time banks, that there seems to be, it's something that certainly within Edinburgh has been talked about for a long time but not really been developed, and yet now there seems to be a bubbling under of a number of projects there, that time bank projects that people are keen in developing. So that positiveness for someone who's been involved for as long as Edgar has was quite hopeful.